episode 7 of Adult Music, the podcast with music for the mature mind. I'm your co-host Russ, along with Mike, and...
That's me, Mike.
It's almost Easter.
It's almost Easter, okay, and that means I just want to wish all you Christians out there a happy Holy Week, and this is worth noting because... if you happen to be musically inclined, you don't have to be Christian. If you like music, there's lots of great music for Holy Week. I'm talking, of course, about the Johann Sebastian Bach Passions, the St. Matthew Passion and the St. John Passion. Okay, so this is the week that I, every year, kind of unpack those or get those out of my collection and put them on just to kind of get in the Holy Week mood, I guess.
Yeah, I've got a few recordings of each of those.
Yeah.
It's a nice Sunday morning or afternoon listen. Right.
It's the entire afternoon. Yeah, they're very long. but a very enjoyable one. The St. Matthew Passion, the mighty St. Matthew Passion, maybe one of the greatest works in the history of the Western world. Okay, and the St. John Passion, the more somber kind of St. John Passion. What's funny is those all recount the events of Holy Thursday and Good Friday, right? But it's really funny in a religion as musical as Christianity. The most important day, Easter, really doesn't have much music. You think of Christmas, and there's just this overload of all kinds of music, sacred and secular, both. Okay, right. I always claim that there are three kinds of Christmas songs. There's like the religious music. Mm-hmm. Then there's like just these secular songs like Santa Claus and Frosty the Snowman. Right. And then there are just songs about winter, which aren't really Christmas songs, like Winter Wonderland or Sleigh Ride. They're not really Christmas songs.
Southern Hemisphere,
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Anyway, you move over to Easter, and there's really not, well, I don't want to say nothing, but there's not much. There is a Bach, like Easter cantata, or I guess, right? But it's very short, and it's not as substantial as the Passions. Okay, and the reason why I really wanted to bring this up is because last year there were some fantastic recordings of the Bach Passions and a few others that I want to mention too. Let me see. First of all, the ones to really check out, I think, are the ones by Masaaki Suzuki and Bach Collegium Japan, of both the St. Matthew Passion, the mighty St. Matthew Passion, and the St. John Passion, which was released later in the year. The St. Matthew Passion was released at around Easter last year. And then everything went into lockdown, and Suzuki and the Bach Collegium Japan decided, hey, let's record the St. John Passion, while we're locked down. They did that, and they came out around September. Highly recommended recordings, both of them. And if you happen to have SACD equipment, they are both SACDs, so fantastic sound quality on those as well. Great singing. I highly recommended.
Yeah, these are nice recordings. I listened to both of these.
Yeah, I did too. Those are going to be my preferences for this year. I want to point out another St. John Passion. This one by Collegium Vocale Gent and Philippe Herrevega, the conductor of the St. John Passion, which was released at about the same time last year as the St. Matthew Passion by Suzuki. Okay, so this is another one. This is a pretty lean-sounding recording. It's although the Suzuki one isn't really fully, isn't really big, have big orchestral sound either. We're going for a much leaner sound these days. Okay, so it's got a slightly different quality to it. I would recommend that one too. Okay, if you're really into your Holy Week Passions, your Good Friday Passions, there's the Richard Danielpour recording of the Passion of Yeshua, which we talked about. That was nominated for a Grammy this year. I thought it was okay, really. It was a pretty ordinary setting, but the text was pretty interesting because it kind of takes a Middle Eastern point of view, and I thought that was kind of intriguing. Okay, it's very well, orchestrated and things, but I didn't just find it terribly exciting. The music supports the text well. Okay, and then there's one more, and this is going to lead us into our first recording. There's a Handel Passion by Handel that I have never heard before. the Brokus Passion. This is going to be there's a new recording of it, and this is this week. I haven't listened to it yet. This is going to be the first time I hear it. It's very exciting, actually. Okay, and oh god, I don't have the information in front of me here. I don't. The thing I remember about it is that the soprano Sandrine Piau is on it, and we're going to be talking about her shortly, okay, because she has been pretty active this year. She sang on this the Brokus Passion. I want to see who. Just want to get this up and see who the group was. Okay. Oh, it's Arcangelo. I love this group. Arcangelo Jonathan Cohen playing the harpsichord, and he's also the director of the group. So knowing from what I've heard of other Arcangelo recordings, this should be kind of light but fairly fast-paced performance. I don't want to say yet because I haven't heard it, but I'm sure it'll kind of be the same. They get this real like nice rhythmic spring to their Baroque music playing. So I recommend them. I think I'm going to recommend that without hearing it. Give it a listen. Also, Sandrine Piau is one of the is the soprano on the recording. Let me see. What did I just do? I just took this away. The other two soloists are, let me get this up. Okay, Stuart Jackson tenor and Konstantin Krimmel is the baritone on the recording. So I am looking forward to spending an entire afternoon, because it's also very long. This is a 2.5 hour long work. People had a lot of time back in those days, huh? They just sit in the theater, listen to their...
It was before YouTube and podcasts. So.
Yeah, their passion. Okay, let's go back to the past and just spend an entire day just listening to one piece of music. I think that's a great way to spend the day. Okay. So anyway, Sandrine Piau is on that. Now, we had mentioned Sandrine Piau on this podcast before when we talked about the Haydn 2032 series, the latest release.
Right.
There. Okay, we said that it was kind of mercilessly pushed and all that. But the real highlight of that was an aria, or a work by a Haydn work that Sandrine Piau sang on, and she was just really in top form. It really stood out as a special performance. So I really wanted to hear her new album, which is called Clair-Obscur, and it's music by Richard Strauss, Alban Berg, and Zemlinsky, Alexander von Zemlinsky. There's sort of false advertising here in the title because it's got a French title, and right. All the works are in German. So go figure. I don't know. Maybe it just they're appealing to the French record label, and the French soprano are appealing to the French audience. Okay, so we gave this a listen this week. All right, now the program has Waldgesprach by Alexander von Zemlinsky, and it has one of the feature points is Alban Berg's 7 early songs, okay, which I don't really hear often, so that was a real treat to hear that. They're actually very appealing and very interestingly orchestrated. There are all sorts of kind of quivering lines just kind of intersecting each other and just changing. It's almost like kaleidoscopic in every song. I really liked that a lot. Okay, but the key songs on this are, first of all, Richard Strauss's song Morgan, the morning, right? Which got a lot of recordings last year, as well as the Vier letzte Lieder, which is the 4 last songs, very, very famous. The most famous recording being by Elisabeth Schwarzkopf back in the day. I still think of that recording when I think of these pieces, that soaring soprano line, okay, like this beam of light being flashed through the heavens, like the bat signal, but forget that reference, that wasn't good. But it's just kind of just this beam of light in the air that's kind of, in the dark, lighting up the darkness, okay? I'm going to use that metaphor again pretty soon. Okay, now last year, another odd thing, I want to talk about this more. The song Morgan, the text of the song is about kind of tomorrow. Oh, Morgan, it doesn't mean morning. I mean, yeah, it means tomorrow, basically tomorrow morning, I guess, when the sun rises. It talks about, we will walk again, or things like this. So it's sort of like a very positive song about how the future is going to be okay. And a lot of Sopranos last year picked this song up. It became almost like a staple, a kind of staple of last year's, the lockdown, where everybody was suffering, and they said, "Oh, and tomorrow will be great again." Okay. I'm not sure what this poem is actually about. It kind of seems to me, and didn't do any research into it, that she's kind of wishing that her dead lover were alive again, and she's kind of imagining that they're going to be together. That's kind of how I interpreted it, but I'm not sure. So anyway, that along with, if you remember, Puccini's Nessun Dorma were the two big triumphant songs from last year. Okay, and the four last songs. Now, there are three other recordings of these that came out last year, all of them noteworthy. I would recommend them all. Okay, they are by... I don't have my notes ready today. I don't know what's happening to me. Here we go. Okay. The first one was Lise Davidsen. She's a Norwegian soprano. And this woman was born with a Viking helmet on her head. She's born to sing Wagner. Okay, she's got this big soprano voice. And we'll be talking about her a little bit more in the coming weeks, because she's got a new album out too, of Beethoven, Verdi, and Wagner arias. Or songs, I'm not sure. Then there was Diana Damrau, German soprano, singing all of these tracks and these works. And then Elsa Dreisig, who is a French soprano, despite the last name. She's actually got she's got a French parent and a Danish parent, so she's sort of both. Her recording was really interesting because she did the Strauss four last songs, and she split them all up. So one of them appears at the beginning of the program, and then another one's inserted towards the middle, then near the end, the third one, and then she ends with the fourth one. It was kind of nice. And the other songs that she included in her program, which were by Rachmaninoff and Dupac. It was pretty interesting. There's a French, Russian, and German. She's singing in all three languages. It was a really good program. That album is called Morgan by Elsa Dreisig. I recommend that. Well, she's a lighter voice than someone like Lise Davidsen, and Diana Damrau, of course, that's a big room-filling voice as well. Okay, so we get to Sandrine Piau, and she's a French soprano, and not a huge voice, but it's very strong and really can ringing in the high end, in a really kind of exciting way. The thing that marks this program out, or her singing out, is that she takes sort of a different approach to these arias. Like, she doesn't really... I use that beam of light metaphor, and if you think about the physical properties of light, they say it can be a particle or it can be a wave. I almost feel like the other three sopranos and the usual soprano that sings this work kind of projects this wave-like beam of light into the universe. These really exciting kind of, high soprano lines that really died with Strauss's four last songs. I think they were the last works that were written in that style. It's a tradition that started with Wagner, went through Mahler, and really ended with Strauss. So this is the end of that. Piau's approach is more like a particle of light. Okay, what I mean by this is that the line just doesn't it's not just this legato in the same tone. She changes the color of the phrase, the intonation, the color of the tone in mid-flight. It's pretty interesting, actually. Like she's interpreting within the line. I thought it was really interesting and compelling. It was something new for me.
That's with the title here, right? This is the Clair-Obscur, which is the French version of Chiaroscuro. Light and shade, right? Right, in pictorial representation of those elements. Of course, here we have it in sound, but
right. When I saw the title, though, I was thinking of the topics of the works that she chose. Like they're all contrasted with each other.
That's what I thought too. But when I listened to it, this recording actually has great continuity. Even though I was expecting, because I didn't know the Zemlinsky work, and they started out with that. But what I felt was really good continuity through them, and what sort of connects them all is the melodic content. The the melodies are just all really beautiful, and they relate well in the sequence here to each other. So I found it sort of an easy journey to go along with her voice. And this is not usually music, just listening to classical music, soprano voice for me. I'll usually tire after one work, and I'll want to listen to something else because it's not my main sort of thing that I focus on. But I really enjoyed listening to this from beginning to end, and the way her phrasing and sort of foresight through all of the works and then putting them all together right from beginning to end. I really felt I was along for the ride on the performances here. And her voice, the intricacies and the little nuances that she has in the phrasing, and just the little musical elements that are not, like you say, her voice isn't overpowering, but she does have a lot of small things that you pick up on in her voice that she can do that are very subtle. But it drew me in, and it's a very, very well thought out program with a lot of continuity in the melodic nature of the works. So I was engaged right through it all.
Yeah, by the end, not only was I engaged, but in the once we got into the four last songs, which I feel are the highlight of this program, the song Morgan, her version of it, it's slightly slightly fast. And usually sopranos like to have a slower tempo in this so they can really you can get that whole luscious tone, out of it. But she actually kind of goes through this a bit more quickly, going more for the line, the connectedness of the line. But by the time we got to the four last songs, the second one of them, Septembre, the first words, the image, der Garten trauert, kühl sinkt in die Blumen der Regen, okay? The garden mourns, the cool rain sinks into the flowers. The way she sang this, it was just magical. I really had, I don't know, maybe I just connected with the text through her voice or something like that, and I could see that garden. It was really an amazing moment. There's a little bit of one of this, bit of an epiphany for me there. And this happened again in the third song, Beim I can't say this, Schlafengehen, Beim Schlafengehen, another Hermann Hesse poem. Real magic in this. I would like everybody to hear this and let us know what you think, actually, how you responded to this. Excellent program. I recommend this very highly. Okay, anything else? You want to say anything else about that, Russ?
No, okay? Just that I enjoyed it more than I would normally be drawn into just listening to a whole album of classical soprano voice. I found her voice very endearing. Probably on any material, I'm going to enjoy the tonality of her voice, but the melodic nature of all these works is very compelling, and they're played in a supporting role to her voice, and just enjoyed it right to the end. So worth a listen. I'll probably listen to it again.
Yeah, one more note: Orchestre Victor Hugo, Jean-François Verdier, or the accompanist. Well, you can't really call them accompanists because the orchestration is really a very important part of these songs. They really stand out in the Berg. I thought the 7 early songs. Now, usually you're very aware of the orchestration in the 4 last songs and the Strauss orchestrations, but I didn't think that was the case here. I was really focused on her because, again, she's given a great performance, and I think they just kind of lay back a bit. German composers from this era, from Wagner until around Strauss, are really famous for their beautiful brass settings, and this is the case in the 4 last songs as well by Strauss, but it doesn't really stand out here so much. No. Yeah, my attention wasn't drawn to it, let's say, but I have no problem with that. It was good playing, and it's really Sandrine Piau's recording. Recommended. Please listen to that. Okay, let's go to a big bad 20th century composer whose music really isn't very scary. Okay, a lot of people, they hear names like Schoenberg or somebody like that, and they're still kind of like, oh, it's going to be, it's modern. Okay, it's modern music. Now, first of all, I want to say,
but is it adult?
There's really
music?
nothing. Is it adult? It is adult music.
It could be modern.
There's nothing modern about Schoenberg. That music was written 100 years ago.
Yes.
I would like to, by the way, all you scholars out there, modernism, okay? The adjective for modernism is usually written as modern, which I think is really crazy because modern means contemporary, today, right? But they're using it as an adjective for modernism. I think the adjective should be modernist, so that we know that it's like from that period and not like music being written today. Okay, so this kind of drives me crazy. One of my little pet peeves about music scholarship.
They weren't forward thinking in their terminology.
People wonder why most of the world doesn't listen to classical music. Well, I guess there are a lot of reasons, but one of them is because I feel like scholars just make it more obscure than it needs to be. Okay, I would really like to undo that. All right. Anyway, the composer I'm talking about is György Ligeti, one of the 20th century's great avant-garde composers. And he's really unique. His music is always very unique because after Schoenberg, the style that really took off was the 12-tone style of Schoenberg. And let's see, there's the neoclassicism of Stravinsky, too, that kind of was in competition with that. And I would claim that Bartók's music is highly, percussive, rhythmic, and looking back to the earlier eras in all that modernism was also a big influence too. But Ligeti, okay, he like Boulez, like these kind of the serial composers, he emerged in that period, but he didn't write serial music. His music was based a lot on timbre, and it wasn't tonal, but it was based on timbre. It was based on the sound that it made and the intervals between tones. Okay, he used this a lot. Most people will know Ligeti's music from the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's the music that his work Lux Aeterna, Eternal Light. It's from the Requiem Mass. Here we are back in Christianity again. Uses quarter tones, and it's a really intriguing work to listen to from beginning to end. If you've never heard it, seek it out. It's worth hearing. Lux Aeterna by Ligeti. And you heard it in the movie 2001 every time the monolith appeared. Okay, it was sort of also one of his he didn't write much for the piano until later. Okay, and he did a work called Musica Ricercata, and there's a two-note, there's a two-note theme in one of those that appears in the movie Eyes Wide Shut. Stanley Kubrick really liked his music. Okay. All right, so at the end of his life, Ligeti started writing Études for the piano. Now, he himself wasn't a pianist. Most of his music was for large orchestra and really kind of often odd sort of sounding orchestras too. The thing that marks Ligeti's music out, one of the things that happened after World War II was we're experiencing something like this now. Emotion went out the window. Like, people didn't want to feel anything anymore, I guess, after the numbness of the discovery of the Holocaust and the horrors of the atomic bomb and all the horrors that happened, especially towards the end of that war. Artists decided, okay, no more emotions, and they did this really intellectual music. Well, Ligeti's music is intellectual too, but it's got kind of a humor to it too. He's got a funny kind of playing around sort of quality to him as well, and that makes his music more appealing than most of the rest from this period. There's one piece that he wrote, I don't remember what it's called, but it's for 100 metronomes. And when they set 100 metronomes ticking at the same time, and of course they all wind down at different speeds, and by the end there's just some spectacular rhythmic juxtapositions. It's pretty funny if you think about it, but a 20th century sort of idea.
So this one,
anyway, towards the end, yeah.
I when I was listening, I've listened to his symphonies and other things, and here these are études, right? So in a sense, there's studies for the piano, and I felt that with them. I felt rather than them being composed pieces to make a long melodic statement or something,
right,
that they're rather explorations of something to be worked out.
Exactly. That's what all of his music is, really.
Well, my first listen, I couldn't enjoy them too much as a performance piece of a composition. So I started, when I listened to them again, I tried to put myself in the piano player's position as sort of something to be worked out. And then I realized that these are probably, well, they're absolutely quite challenging to play, but they must be fun to play as a study in piano. And when I listened to them, thinking of them from the piano player's standpoint, I could enjoy them a lot more, because I found that the main thing I got, well, there are the intervals, and there's lots of things that work themselves up to the extremes of the keyboard in various pieces. But the focus for me was on the rhythmic content. There's very interesting rhythms and counter rhythms contrasting in both hands that would sound incredibly difficult to coordinate together, especially when you don't necessarily have a melody line. You're dealing with a series of intervals that are going through. But worked in with all of that is a lot of interesting dynamics too. And this is, who's the pianist? Danny Driver?
Danny Driver. Yeah, we should mention, this is the recording is on Hyperion Records, Hyperion. The 18 Études of György Ligeti by Danny Driver, who I believe is a British pianist.
And the other thing that was interesting to me too is trying to just sort out, because there's 18 of them here, is that the titles are in various languages.
Yeah,
they change
I really
languages.
enjoyed this too. They're all fanciful as well. They're kind of really interesting.
The one that I thought was interesting, there's one on there, it's called Galamb Borong.
Yeah, I think that's what, Indonesian or something.
Well, no, that's what I thought. And I looked up, what is that? So
I didn't look it up.
The sounds you hear are inspired by Indonesian gamelan music. That sort of rhythmic pulse to it, as I think Debussy was influenced a bit by that too. However, when you hear Galamb Borong, that sounds Indonesian to me, but it's actually Hungarian, and it means melancholy pigeon. So it's not the image I had at all of that piece, but it is kind of cool. And there's a lot of really busy rhythmic pieces, but there are a few points in there where his music is not, it's not really tonal and not purposely atonal, but there are a few passages that contrast. There's the 15th one, White on White. Yeah. Start out with a really kind of beautiful sequence of intervals that I thought contrasted a lot with the complex rhythms of the other pieces. So there's, a diversity of sounds in here. But I think when I listen to them, if I approach it as a study of what he's exploring, I found it more satisfying than thinking of, what sort of overarching composition I'm listening to. On the first listen, I was a bit bewildered, and then when I went back the second time, I found more to sort of latch on to and identify with as the performances went on.
Yeah, that is true of classical music in general. The more you kind of know about it, like the more interesting it is, needless to say. But this almost becomes required in the 20th century, because each composer had his own really unique style. Whereas, say, in Mozart's day or in the Baroque era, there was sort of a I hate to use this analogy, but you're sort of making a chest of drawers, really. And some people were just really excellent artisans at that. There were just these forms, and they kind of followed the forms, which is not the case anymore. That doesn't mean that's not great music. I mean, it certainly is. It's really what happens within that, the designs on that chest of drawers that make it really special. One of my favorite work on this, by the way, is L'Escalier du Diable, the staircase of the devil. Okay, and you can kind of imagine the poor pianist walking up the staircase of the devil. Okay, it's these kind of upward sort of like I don't want to say staccato, bouncing sort of figuration, moving up the piano, up, and it goes way up into the very, highest notes of the piano, which you rarely hear, and then comes tumbling down.
That's the one I was talking about, going to extremes. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it was really exciting to listen to. I liked it a lot. It was kind of funny as well. He's got a witty sense of humor, sort of like Mozart had, except that he's in his own kind of modern musical style. Ligeti, these works, I think these are the last great piano works ever written so far. These were the last works. Book 3 were the last works he wrote before he died. I'm not sure. The last one I think was written in 2000, 2001, and he died in 2006. And I'm wondering if he was just sick for the last 5 years and would have written more. I'm not really sure. I'm not up on that. But fantastic titles. This is music. It's a little bit of a challenge. You have to sort of, adjust to it, or maybe know a little bit about it first.
I think so, because I knew his orchestral works, but this was something completely different for me. I thought, okay, I kind of know Ligeti's concept, but I wasn't really ready for that applied to the piano. It's something completely different here. And, yeah.
And aside from the early, Musica Ricercata and a few real miniatures, they're really the only substantial piano works that he wrote in his life. And he did it towards the end. I want to say something about the performance and the recording. Now, I knew these works before because I had heard Pierre-Laurent Aimard record them. He did. He recorded them all when Ligeti was still alive, and he had only composed the first Étude in Book 3, White on White. Also, the only English language title in this whole set. And the other 3 he included on an album of African Pygmies or something like that he was doing. He was kind of contrasting music, classical music with the music of African tribes. It was a really weird recording. It was kind of an odd thing to listen to hear those 3 Ligeti Études that I had never heard before. But first of all, it's nice to have them all on this recording. And I can't say whether these are... Well, the Aimard recording was the first ever recorded, I think. And then there were 1 or 2 other sets recorded. But this is probably the most distinguished complete set out there. The pianist... He articulates the different kind of dynamic levels of the works exceptionally well, and that is really an astonishing feat considering how difficult these pieces sound and people say are. So he gets great sound, and the recording is fantastic. It's really clear. You can hear all the detail in the playing. I think this is highly recommended. I thought it was great. If you're ready for a little adventure, I would recommend this. Okay.
Yeah, and if you really want a challenge, try to play it. I'd hate to see the sheet music for this. Wow.
Yeah, this would be this could be something. This is like a step towards extreme music.
Yeah, extreme.
By the composer Alberto Narcisi in my novel, Extreme Music. Read it, everybody. And for those of you who bought the novel, some people, I got a very tiny royalty check this month. So for those of you who bought the book and read it, thank you so much. I'm really appreciative of your interest and purchase.
Just check out Mike's novel. Anyone who has been involved in the music world, especially classical music and a conservatory or in that environment, you will appreciate the humor and reality in this novel.
It was fun to write, I have to say. I laughed a lot while I was writing it. Okay. Onward.
My classical pick this week is The Art of Modern Trumpet, Volume 2 on Naxos.
Volume 2. Oh, I hate when they do that. Like Volume 2, now I have to hear Volume 1.
Yeah, I have to go back and hear Volume 1.
I do that too. I'm kind of like, I have to hear Volume 1. If it's Volume 8, though, I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to listen to Volumes 1 through 7. I figure that's too much.
Here we have a Scottish trumpeter, Huw Morgan, who has good credentials, playing with some major orchestras in the UK and teaching in some conservatories, along with on piano Rebecca Wilt. And I was drawn to this as a trumpet player because trumpet in the classical music sort of suffers from a lack of repertoire that other instruments have. And of course, in the history of the trumpet, before the modern valves were perfected, it was a rather limited instrument. And so it was limited in what it could do. And so in the standard repertoire, we would have the Haydn, the Hummel, and in modern music, the Hindemith, sort of things that you would play. However, there's a lot of good modern music, 20th century music written for the trumpet that isn't well known even among classical music fans, but it's out there. And so whenever I see a recording of some of those pieces, I'm kind of interested to hear it. And in this case, Volume 1 is different, but Volume 2 focuses on 20th century France. Yeah. And so we've got a lot of music here that has beauty of tone. And Morgan has a really huge, round, and shining tone that really makes this material come to life here. And there's a variety of different works here. We've got, let's see, a lot of short compositions with longer ones. The last track on here is the Jolivet. And
I like him.
And I believe I have another recording with his, I think he has a trumpet concerto or a trumpet sonata. It's a longer work. And here we have a short piece that's the Air de Bravure. I guess it's Bravura. And this is really kind of work that features lots of double tonguing on the trumpet with great flourish. And,
yes, that's the word I had here, flourish.
Yeah, flourish. And so it accentuates that sort of tonguing nature of the trumpet. There's a Ibert piece to start, which is nice. And
like a fanfare. That kind of sounded like a fanfare. I mean, it's called impromptu. It's an impromptu.
Right.
But apparently the person impromptu was a fanfare. Somebody was entering the room and they...
Right. And we've got I'm going to butcher all of these French names.
Galois
Montbrun, the Sarabande Finale. This has got lots of nice lines and a lovely short muted part that's inserted into it that comes up.
That's a one-movement work, right? It's got these lovely chiming piano chords at the end that really kind of caught my attention.
And probably the one that's been most recorded and performed by trumpet players is the Hugo.
Oh, wow. Because this was new for me.
Right. No, it's actually, I think a lot of trumpet students are playing this and performing it in recitals. It's very sonorous, lots of nice melody lines. And the third movement,
very noble at the beginning. Yeah.
Yes, and the third movement is called Spiritual, which has got some bluesy, very American type elements in it. And it's really lovely piece. Yeah. Then we have the Sankan Rhapsody, which begins with some very interesting trumpet intervals that sort of set up a sort of movement with just the trumpet, and then it becomes rather playful with the piano. And there's another piece here, Roof. And I think Sankan and Roof are lesser known French composers.
Janine Rueff, I guess. Yeah, it's called Mobiles, and it kind of
Mobiles. This is very mysterious and haunting.
But I thought of like Mobiles as those kind of hanging sort of things, and you get that sense from the opening piano line, where these kind of you have these like almost hanging like tones, and they're played like really spaced apart from each other. Kind of gave you this image of something just kind of hanging in midair. Yeah, I liked it a lot.
I think her and Sankan, they're not well known outside of France for their other compositions, so it's nice they're included here. And I think having sort of this French 20th century theme makes a nice concept for the whole album. The trumpet playing is fabulous, beautiful tone, and technique seems effortless by Morgan, and Wilt's piano is a nice support here. So for a 20th century collection of music that's very quite accessible, it's all easy to listen to, really, and has a different collection of moods and different styles, but it sticks to this theme. I found it quite enjoyable, and I'm going to check out Volume 1. I haven't had time to listen to it yet, but whenever I see a collection like this, I'm hoping it will be something good, and for trumpet players or fans of trumpet music, this one is well worth a listen.
Yeah, I enjoyed this a lot as well, and I especially enjoyed, I'm always listening to the piano accompaniment, of course, too, and you don't really hear enough, trumpet and piano, but this was a really enjoyable combination. Some of the piano figuration, the sounds coming out of the piano. French music is generally about timbre,
right?
Especially in the 20th century, and there was a bit of that in here. Oh, by the way, if you're ever trying to get into like Pierre Boulez's very dense, highly intellectual music, the secret is listen to the timbre. The sounds that the instruments make. It's very inviting, and then as you kind of do that, you can get more and more deeper into the intellectual stuff as you go. It's the thing about French composers; they have this real good ear for the sound the instrument makes and the way they combine them. Okay, so that's pretty interesting here. The French ear for the trumpet.
Yes,
I thought was really interesting.
Nice sounds.
Okay, and that will do it for. Well, actually, it won't do it for classical music. Kind of. Because we're kind of getting into the jazz part of the program now, and this was my choice this week.
Both worlds. And we both knew about this, but you decided we should talk about it. And,
because I kind of thought it was interesting. This is Pat Metheny's new album, Road to the Sun. Now, I had noticed that this was... it was making all the jazz lists. I was like, oh, Pat Metheny has a new album out. He had a brief hiatus in the 2010s, like I think from 2015 to 2020, he didn't make an album. And then last year, he released From This Place, which was a jazz album. And then Road to the Sun came out this year. It's on all the jazz charts. And yet, this is really a classical album, isn't it?
It's a composed.
I think.
It's all composed works. This is not it's not improvised music. So,
not only that. Yeah, Metheny doesn't really play much on it either.
No, he doesn't.
These are
just a few tracks. It's mainly we've got the solo parts played by the Grammy-winning classical guitarist Jason Viau. And the other parts are performed by the Los Angeles Guitar Quartet.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to start with the Jason Viau piece, Four Paths of Light, it's called, composed by Pat Metheny. And I was expecting something sort of jazzy, but no, this is a really very strictly composed work. It's a bit... somber, I guess. It's kind of serious, but serious in only a way like Pat Metheny can be. Pat Metheny in his music, in his jazz, and even here, he comes across as such an optimist and a person who just takes real joy in music that it just comes out even in a work that's he's being serious in, even in like minor key movements. It just kind of sounds like it's this kind of light sadness that's going to go away really soon. This piece was pretty serious, very well articulated, beautifully played by the guitarist, Jason Viau, is the name. It's a 4-movement work. What can we say about this? It's kind of... it's really written in a traditional classical style with, different parts... different lines articulated very well. It's not really jazzy at all. He has this way, Pat Metheny, of putting a lot of different elements into the same movement. And this is especially true in the next work, Road to the Sun, which is the title of the album, and the main work on this recording, performed by the Los Angeles Guitar Quartet, with Metheny himself playing a little bit in 2 movements. Also, it says here that One of the guitarists, John Dearman, in the Los Angeles Guitar Quartet, is playing a 7-string guitar. I'm guessing that's the bass, huh? Anyway,
you can hear various influences of styles here.
Yeah.
You can hear some flamenco, choro
really
music,
Spanish too, just ordinary
samba,
Spanish classical music too,
and also
very
post-romantic kind of classical etudes for guitar influences, but they're all sort of weaved together into the performance. And then when Metheny plays, he plays, as you say, it's not a jazz style.
You always know it's him though. Somehow
he has a very unique sort of attack
sound
and phrasing,
in
his sound too. So, yeah, I was surprised by this, and then we get to the final piece.
This is a bonus track. Actually, it's listed as. This is Arvo Pärt's work Für Alina, which is, I think, originally for piano solo. It's very short. It's a little longer here than the versions I've heard. And this is performed by Pat Metheny on 42-string guitar. It's a guitar that is built especially for him. And it makes all kinds of really unusual sounds. You get this really deep bass drone.
Yeah.
And then there's sort of like the sound of somebody running their kind of fingernails through a piano kind of sound, on one of those necks. I've seen a picture of this guitar. It looks like if a string breaks, the tension would just kind of instantly kill the guitarist, I think. Or smash the guitar into smithereens. Lacerations, yeah. It looks like it's highly, highly tense. I don't know how it holds together. But it was really interesting all the way through. I found this record very appealing. I didn't find it's lightish as far as mood goes, but it was not lightweight at all. There's real content in here. Metheny knows something about musical content, and it's really a nice surprise, this record. I thought it was great. Yep. It's different for him. He's actually writing out parts and instead of improvising them. A highly recommended recording. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, so my first impression with the first track, which is very full on and with kind of intense rhythms, and I thought, wow, what am I in for here? But then by the time I got to the end, and I saw that was in contrast with some of the other movements, and then with the solo and the quartet pieces, and then the final Pärt piece, my mind had changed, and I don't want to say, I don't like to compare things, and say, this is not really classical music, or why doesn't he stick to jazz? I think a respected artist like him, he can do something like this. And I think it stands on its own, and it's a lot of fine guitar playing and interesting music here. And I like these. Another guitarist who I really like is Aldi Miola, who has sort of crossed sort of genre lines, and he's done some recording of Piazzolla's music and in more stricter forms, composed form. Actually, he's been someone who sort of likes to stick to very composed forms in music, and that can be criticized as someone who's noted as a jazz musician. But when you think you may have something that's sort of set without need for much improvisation, and it can stand as a composition on its own, then why not put it out as that? And I like what Metheny has done here, and it's well worth a listen. I've only listened to it twice, but I think it's worth listening to some more.
I think I'll be listening to this all year, to be honest. I liked it, and the it's not really a Metheny sort of approach, but the Arvo Pärt work, which is very still, he captures that stillness well, and I was kind of impressed by that, because it's really a departure for him.
That's really put you out there in a different space, that track,
Yeah, Metheny's playing is often in flight, and that one kind of captures
I heard that
this sort of stillness.
He made an angry comment about all modern guitarists sounding exactly like him, and he wasn't happy about that. I think he might be right.
He did say that, really?
Yeah. Not in a conceited way, but in sort of an angry kind of way. But he is that influential in his sound. So
it's not a bad sound to have. I can tell you that. It's very positive, and especially in the world we live in the 20th century world as well. He was really just this kind of.
Well, there's just a few players that have a huge, they have that stamp of a sound that if it gets in your head, you can't get out of. Like I think, like another guitarist like Mike Stern. When I hear Mike Stern, I have no idea what he's doing because it's like from outer space, but it sounds so cool. John Schofield, another player like that. And then as we've been listening, in the past few weeks, we've talked about a lot of the Bill Frisell albums. When Bill Frisell is on an album, that atmosphere and sound he has, it just sort of, that sets the whole terrain for anything else you put on top of it. And, so these guitarists can have a huge influence. And I think, Metheny's whole approach with tone and phrasing and everything, it has that big of an influence that people who try to copy his licks and phrasing, it might be hard to break out of that because it can make a huge impression on the landscape of
what's funny is with Bill Frisell, too, you never hear him sort of do these like athletic sort of playing, but he's got this real sound that takes up space. It has real presence, it's kind of magical.
It sneaks up on you in the background. Yeah, for sure.
Right. It's just kind of, it's right there. And yet it doesn't really sound, if you listen to it, it doesn't, what he's actually playing, it doesn't really sound like there's much there, but there is, I guess. He gets all of it out. Okay. I guess he gets all of the juice out of the fruit, Yeah.
So I guess it'll be interesting to see if this is just a one-off or if he's inspired for more composing. So
I'd certainly like to. I would listen to more by him. It's classical guitar. It's a funny sort of genre because when we think about classical music, we think of what? Beethoven, Mozart, Bach, and yet they didn't write for the guitar. Well, Bach wrote for the lute. A few words.
So you get a lot of transcriptions, and you get a lot of Spanish music, and
the big names in guitar music are people that, unless you listen to classical guitar, you've never heard of.
Right.
Like Barrios or people like that. One of the giants of guitar composition in classical music, and of course Domeniconi. Like these days, we were listening to him earlier in the year. He writes a lot for guitar. Boccherini back in the day, I guess. All right. So I'm trying to think of some young jazz guitarists that who Pat Metheny would be complaining about. I can't really think of any because all the ones I know are around his generation. Bill Frisell, people like that.
Yeah. The one who at some point I would like to review one of his albums, but it's going past. But the one who knocks me out and is not in a new innovative style at all is Peter Bernstein, who's very much in the Jim Hall sort of school of playing, but has his own unique sound and is putting out a lot of really great music. So he had an album out last year that's really great, and if he puts something out new or a collaboration, I'll be sure to bring that up because I think he's a fabulous guitarist who plays with extreme restraint. He's not a show-off at all.
I do like that.
And he has the deepest tone that's out there that really draws you in. So I'll be looking for anything new that he puts out. I'll be looking
forward to that then. Yeah, I'm not familiar with this.
His album that came out last year, I think it was October or November, is called What Comes Next on Smoke Sessions Records. Highly recommended.
Not least for the sound quality of the recordings too. Smoke Sessions are fantastic. Yeah. One of our favorite record labels.
Indeed. And there's one coming up in April that I've got on my list. So
it's going to be a surprise. You're not going to tell me what it is?
What is it? It's Vincent Herring, the great alto sax player's upcoming release, and he's sort of a great alto player who has swallowed and incorporated the sound of Cannonball Adderley in a modern context with much more there, and all of his previous releases have been really, really enjoyable. So I'm looking forward to. I've heard there's one track up on Deezer, so when the album comes out next month, pick it up, and hopefully we'll feature it here.
We should make a list of all the things we love, the apps, the record labels, all those things, just so people know.
The adult music toolbox, so to speak.
Yeah, the adult music toolbox, what you should be, or what to try out at
least.
You
can use to try out.
You're a discerning adult. You can decide for yourself. We'll just kind of point you in the direction.
Yeah, we could just take it from our experiments in obsession with music.
Obsession is
time.
Obsession is right. I've long remarked I have no more room for the CDs in my house. I need to buy a new house now.
That's right. Mike is moving
for my CDs
just to accommodate his CD collection.
That's it. I'm actually keeping my old apartment, which I'm going to live in. My CDs will live in my new house.
CDs will live in a new place. And make sure, remember when you sign that will, put down my name as the inheritor for all those discs.
Indeed, I wish they could pay rent, but
who knows what the future will hold.
Yeah. Anyway, there was speaking of which, there was a joke about I forget what it was. I think it was about the intelligence of monkeys, and somebody had said that that they thought that monkeys were more intelligent than people, but they're not letting you know because they know that we'd make them work. So
could be some
I guess
to
I think those CDs are keeping quiet because they don't want to pay their rent. They know I'll extract it from them. Anyway,
what small fortune lies inside those discs.
Oh well, it's they're not worth much, but they cost a lot. That's the thing. I'm doing everything in backwards. I should buy cars instead. They go up in value.
Archive of cultural heritage.
It is that. That's true. I think of it that way, and I love having them. So, okay. Next one. Let's go on.
Moving on
what do you got?
To the next jazz release. Something I heard digging deep into the new releases. Give It All You Got by the trombonist Michael Dease. And this is on Posi-Tone Records. And Michael Dease is a guy who has made a name for himself. This is his, I think it's his 8th release on Posi-Tone. He's from Georgia, and he's come up through the new jazz program at Juilliard, where he earned his bachelor's and master's degree in the jazz program there. And then he's been around and played in big bands led by none other than Jimmy Heath, Wayne Shorter, Christian McBride, Roy Hargrove. He's appeared with Wycliffe Jordan, Wynton Marsalis, lots of people, Slide Hampton's band. Pop music, he's been a performer with Paul Simon, Alicia Keys, quite a good resume. And these albums he's recorded as a leader on his own are also quite excellent. And we get his latest release here that was recorded in 2019 but has just come out, Give It All You Got. And this is a fine kind of post-bop jazz session that has a lot of funky, bluesy grooves with a lot of good blowing on it.
Funky was the name of the game this week in the jazz choices here.
It starts out
got after this
with a track of A Sliver of Silver, referring to, of course, Horace Silver.
The great Horace Silver.
Yeah, all of the pieces here have that really good, funky, sort of blue note, post-bop, Jazz Messengers, Horace Silver kind of groove to them.
Yeah.
And we've got Dease himself is great technician with really good feeling on the trombone. So the trombone solos are excellent. The other horns here, we've got Anthony Stanko on trumpet and flugelhorn, a fine player, Gregory Tardy on tenor saxophone. All the horn solos are really well crafted, played with lots of tasty licks, fine players here. And what really sets the mood on this whole recording is that it's got organ as the bass.
I love it.
Alfredson on organ. And so that sort of really funky soul jazz organ kind of sound is the basis for all of these tunes, and it really creates a really funky mood for this album. And all of the tunes on here are originals. They're evocative of these sort of post-bop great tunes by Horace Silver and whatnot, but they're original new compositions. Most of them are by Dease, but the organist Alfredson, also Stanko, the trumpet player, and the drummer Luther Allison contributes a track too. So it's all original music in the sort of post-bop funky vein, and it's a really fun album. Great playing,
it's great.
Good grooves. So if you haven't heard Michael Dease, you want to hear a really great up-and-coming trombonist, check this one out on Posi-Tone Records.
Yeah, and my ear is always drawn towards that Hammond organ. I just love that sound in jazz. It's so good. I could listen to recording after recording with that on it. But even though I'm always listening to that, I thought Dease's trombone playing, it was really drawing my ear away from it. It's pretty amazing. I don't think of myself as someone who's gonna go for the trombone, but he had like a real sort of evocative tone, I think, that really that drew me in. So between that and the organ, the Hammond organ, this was just sheer pleasure. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, he's really got a lot of dexterity and facility in his solos. It's playful and really good with a beautiful tone. A really great trombonist. And trombone, it's one of, it always takes a back seat to sax and trumpet in
we really don't hear
ensemble.
enough of it as a solo instrument.
But we should hear more of it. Another great player also on Smoke Sessions is Steve Davis, who I saw with the New Composers Octet some years ago. But he's another great trombonist out there who's making a lot of original music and is a great player. And so, whenever I get a chance to hear really good trombone, I'm happy. And this album really delivers that. So check this out, Michael Dease, Give It All You Got.
Yeah, really nice. A real deep dive from us over there.
Now, Hammond, you can never get enough organ. And
and you can never get enough of this next album that we're going to talk about.
We will, but before we get to that, when I think about what we don't hear enough of, there's lots of things we can talk about, but
a detour. Here we go.
Organ is one of those things. When you think about, go back to the 60s and 70s, organ was on everything. And, you had organ in pop music. You had, of course, in rock, you had the Doors. You had, going back in the 60s, you have the Zombies with Rod Argent and, the organ sound. Even in pop music into the 70s and rock music, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, you had a nice organ sound. And that unique tone and the Leslie speaker, it really set the mood. And then, in jazz, you had a lot of great sort of, soul jazz in the 1970s. Jimmy McGriff, and another great organist I like was Richard Groove Holmes. And,
I remember him.
Just these great, groove sounds.
It'd be cool if your nickname was Groove. All the ladies would know you were the guy to be with, right?
My nickname is Groove. This is a great tune with great horn lines called Ain't No Trouble on the Mountain. It's this minor blues with this great bridge, and it's all this great music. And then I don't know what happened, but in the 80s when sort of the new pop music came out and sort of synthesizer became the bass. For a while, like, guitar-based rock music coexisted with that. But now we're in this new era where we don't really hear much guitar music in pop music, and we don't hear any organ,
Yeah. Oh God, it just drives me crazy that there's no guitar, because to me, like, pop music is the guitar.
Yeah.
I guess it's our generation.
Luckily, in jazz, there's been a resurgence. So we've got some nice organ here on this album. Michael Brecker recorded a couple albums, or at least one, with a sort of organ trio as the basis of it. And we've got, of course, Joey DeFrancesco, who has brought the organ back. Another wonderful jazz pianist and organist extraordinaire, Mike Ledone.
Yes.
Who
you introduced me to him.
Yeah, if you haven't heard him, fabulous recordings. And what came out after we had already decided our list for this week, which, well, I can recommend.
Well, we can do it next week, I guess.
No, because I don't want to do it because of one extreme reservation. Dr. Lonnie Smith has a new album out on Blue Note.
I like him. You don't want to do him?
Well, Lonnie Smith is great, and the album is called Breathe. But there's a problem with someone who's breathing on this album, and that someone is Iggy Pop. And I have no idea why Iggy Pop.
He did one track. He's on one track.
Two tracks, too.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think, you could do the album. You could review the album and say, we didn't like Iggy Pop on it.
I'll think about it a little bit
I like
more.
Iggy, though. I don't know. I bet I'll like this. I got to hear it.
Well,
okay.
You'll wonder why Iggy Pop is breathing on this one when you hear it.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure.
I'm curious now. I'm going to have to hear it now.
Yeah, Dr. Lonnie Smith, another famous jazz organist. So, at least in the jazz world, it seems that organ is alive and well.
Yeah, before we go on to the record, I just want to say the thing that really killed the organ or the keyboard in general in all those in the 70s, there was also that what was it, the Roland piano?
Piano. That's made somewhat of a comeback too in jazz circles. Yeah.
But I remember because I was around in the 80s, and the thing that killed that was the synclavier synthesizer, specifically that one, because it could take samples. And there was a famous incident about taking a sample on the Cosby Show at the time. Stevie Wonder was on the Cosby Show, the sitcom one where he was Dr. Huxtable, and he kind of showed the kids how to take a sample on this instrument, which I believe was a synclavier. I don't remember. I mean, it was long ago and I haven't seen it, but that just changed everything. Suddenly kids were starting to take samples, and hip hop became sample heavy. Because of that episode, really, it had a big influence on everything. And then everything was the synclavier, which kind of bothered me. I think Peter Gabriel used it a lot too, and people like that. So some people used it really creatively. But my whole problem with that instrument was that you could make any sound with it, which is great if you know what sound you're going to make. But it eliminates accidents, and accidents are usually good things in music. When you just sort of maybe do the wrong thing, and yet this sound comes out that you just never would have thought of making before. It's kind of that quality seems to be missing in music now. And it was exciting because when you kind of do something wrong, you have to recover from it, and somehow it sort of wakes you up, and so there's something kind of electric about that sort of thing happening as long as you handle it well. I think of the feedback at the beginning of I Feel Fine by the Beatles, things like that. That wasn't supposed to happen, apparently. And it's kind of iconic now.
Yeah, something spontaneous that happens in the music. Yeah, so I think in pop music, we've lost a lot of these sounds because Rhodes was used, in a lot of pop songs too. But luckily in jazz, there's been sort of a resurgence of that sort of Miles Davis 60s Rhodes sound. I've heard a lot of groups using that again, and certainly organ is coming back too. And there's nothing that sounds like a full Hammond B3 kind of sound there, and just the timbre of that and all the possibilities with the different stops, and it always makes me happy. I remember, I can't find it now. I don't know if it's gone, but before streaming came out, when on iTunes just had internet radio, and I would have a variety of streams that I would listen to. There was a stream that was called Hammond Radio, and it was cross-genre. It would have rock, pop, blues, jazz, but the theme was all the music featured just Hammond organ. And sometimes in the band I was playing, and I was playing keyboard, not on a real Hammond, of course, but using, sort of organ and simulated Leslie. I would listen to that all the time just to get ideas for how to use that Hammond sound in a tune. And, it would change. It would go from one genre to the next, just having, that instrument as the theme. And I don't know if it's out there anymore. But that brings us to our final choice this week, which is all organ, the Delvon Lamarr organ trio with their latest release called I Told You So on Coal Mine Records. And this is their third release. They've got another studio album called Close But No Cigar, and they have a live album, and then this. And this, I have to say, is a very infectious kind of music.
Sure was.
And it's all about the groove. These three musicians, which Delvon Lamarr on organ, guitarist Jimmy James, who is a real rhythm guitar and really dirty solo master, and a new drummer, Dan Weiss. They had previously a different drummer. These guys have the tightest locked-in grooves that you can imagine. And
they're great grooves, too.
It's great grooves, great organ sound. There's not a lot of solos. The solos are concise, but when you listen to them, they're very subtle. And Lamarr's organ playing is really, really tight and nice. Sometimes he's doing the foot pedal bass. Sometimes he's using a keyboard bass for the more sort of syncopated or 16th note type patterns there. But this is really, really groovy music. And it's amazing that they can mine so many different grooves in this style over different albums, and every track sounds really different. And the rhythm,
thrilling too.
Yeah, the subtleties are great. So this one, I Told You So, has a bunch of interesting tracks. One appealing one is the second one. I'll actually post a live performance YouTube video of this, because Jimmy James' solo is really out there on this one, and he does a lot of very interesting things in the live performance of this, which is Call Your Mom, which reading up on it, they write a lot of tracks, it seems, based on a groove, and they don't really have a title for the song. And apparently Lamarr was saying, what should we call it? And the producer, whoever's in the room, just said, how about Call Your Mom? And he said, that sounds good. And that was like a Post-it note that someone had stuck on the back of his organ, because he was supposed to call his mother. But that became the title for the tune. They also seem to, on each release, have a sort of interesting cover. And the sort of out there one on this one is Wham's Careless Whisper.
Yeah, I liked this. I want to talk about this a little bit.
So, what's your impression of this recording?
Well, okay. Well, the Careless Whisper, I want to just say about this. The melody was really interestingly harmonized by the organist. Because he, usually there's no harmony on the original song. It's just kind of a vocal solo. Yeah. Yet he kind of had these really. It sounded great that way. I was like, this is a pretty interesting melody. I didn't really thought of it that way. I mean, it's certainly catchy. We know it when we hear it. But yeah, I enjoyed the harmonizations the organist did. Another thing about this record I wanted to say is the guitarist totally wails on some tracks on this record. Let's see. Who is this? Okay, so it's basically Jimmy James on guitar, but I want to make sure I got the right track. Okay, Fauchot and Aces. That's going to be Jimmy James. he really just he totally wails. It's fantastic to hear, kind of within the groove. Oh, it's just fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
His rhythm playing is just, I mean, the guitar, the rhythm guitar, the drum, it's so in the pocket. It's so deep. And then when he lets loose on his solos, it's all still about the rhythm. And then he does these great rhythmic things and then some sort of microtonal things. And then on some of his live solos, if you can catch, there's a lot of their live performances on YouTube. He does some really atonal and sort of outside tension building elements that are, you know, and he keeps it really simple, still building the tension before he brings things back in. And and these guys just look so relaxed as they play together that it's very infectious in drawing.
And the guitarist has some great guitar faces that he makes as he plays. If you watch this on YouTube, it's pretty,
I'm going to link this one.
He's pretty demonic. It's fantastic.
Yes, his neck is really full Exorcist here, and
it was really good.
So I'm really like this. You know, on one hand, I mean, this is not really, you know, full on, you know. How can I say, mainstream jazz. This is instrumental music that is really, really good. It's soul jazz, incorporating lots of influences. But they seem to, I mean, you would have to be soulless to not be drawn in if you heard this music. It should stop you in your tracks and put you into some sort of groovy dance trance if you heard these rhythms. So.
Yeah, I'm betting these guys are pretty young too, and it's just so fantastic to hear music like this in this day and age.
This is great. And just to see, you know, the one live performance, they're sort of in the lobby of the place, you know, in front of these large windows, and then just to see, you know, the Hammond organ out there, you know, people walking by and then hearing this and then just stopping, you know, from this wall of sound and these rhythms. You know, this is what we need to come back into music that people can experience with real instruments. And
this would be a great night out, actually, to hear this band play. It would be really fun. Yeah,
if we ever get a chance
be
to
all
see
sweaty
them.
And soaked in their sweat and stuff. It'd be great, you know.
Yeah,
get really funky. By the way, for listeners, maybe I don't know if everybody figured out last week's episode title. You know, what was it? Boats.
Scooters,
yeah. Turtlenecks. They referred to the album covers because we kind of made a big deal about the album covers on last week's podcast. This week we didn't. I mean, they're all perfectly good album covers, but they're kind of standard. But I want to say that this particular one, the Delvon Lamarr Organ Trio, has a pretty interesting album cover. It looks like this guy. He looks like he's pretty beefy. He's standing under like I guess in a tunnel, kind of under an overpass or something like that. And it looks like he's shadow boxing kind of in the middle of this tunnel. Yeah. It was a pretty interesting image for this album.
I don't know if that's Delvon himself. He's a bit of a beefy guy. Jimmy James is kind of beefy too.
Could be Jimmy James too. I don't know, but it's only one of them. The other guys aren't visible in the photo.
Yeah, or it could just be a crazy
or it's
guy
just some guy. We don't know who it is, really. Yeah.
It is kind of nice, the black and white with the the print on top of it.
Yeah, so I thought this was good. So So really, everything this week is highly recommended. Everybody, I urge you to get on Deezer or whatever streaming service you use and check them all out. And I think it'll just lift you up.
Yeah, check them out. Really we always provide links with what's available on Spotify and Apple Music because those are the popular services. Amazon has their new high definition service too. Mike and I are using Deezer now.
We use Deezer.
I've used it.
Sponsor us, Deezer. We love you.
I've used it for a year and a half or so. I've been pretty happy with both the sound quality and catalog.
The sound quality, we like the catalog's good too. Yeah,
catalog's good
we like
too.
the sound quality. They do high res.
Yeah, so whatever service you listen to on. It's interesting because we've got our podcast up, and it's on all the major services. We are hosted on Podbean ourselves, but you can find us wherever you may be listening now. We are on Amazon and Spotify, and we are
and YouTube too, but with no video.
Yeah, we have a few listeners on YouTube, and we are on, I forget all of them. I just applied for 2 more this week, actually. Of course, Google Podcasts and others. The interesting thing, however, is that we're here in Japan, and Japan Deezer does not have podcasts supported yet, so I can't find our own show on Deezer, although I do know that there are a few listeners on Deezer somewhere. So it's a strange world as far as distribution goes now.
You could probably get a VPN and kind of, although you can't, no, because if you subscribe to Deezer, it's always it's very country specific because you're paying.
You can find the podcast in the search, but only on the mobile app, but not on the desktop app. So
they know where you are. It's just terrible.
They know where we are. I don't know where we are, but get us out there on all the platforms possible.
We were in our mountain lair where no one will ever find us.
No one will find us.
With great stereo equipment.
I take comfort with. Yes, we have the equipment to produce anything that we want in the audio realm, whether it be live or remote, and we won't let you know.
And we have the CD collection to get through the entire millennium. Really,
that's the scary thing.
If we figure out a way to live forever
in this time when everything is possible almost instantly, what if streaming goes away in an instant?
I think about this often.
You could lose your whole music collection
in an instant.
On a whim.
You could do that in a fire too if you have record, vinyl, or CDs, but that's less likely to happen, I think.
I'd say for the paranoid music buff, it's good to have your CD collection and streaming and all your releases backed up at least twice on various hard drives. And
buying CDs or some kind of physical things like buying gold in the stock market. It's a hedge, okay? But it's actually my main way of listening to music. I still like to put the CD in the machine, close the door, and it's almost like a ritual.
It's a connection.
You kind of lose that quality. Yeah, there's some kind of connection you don't get.
And when I go to the shelf, almost every CD among the thousands that I have, I can pretty much remember when and where I was when I bought it.
That's another issue.
It brings back a memory to me when I go to it. And, so there's that tangible connection with the album notes. And also, these days, I do buy new releases, but I pick up a lot in the used stores here in Japan. And, I also notice when I, sometimes I look up on my, smartphone while I'm there or when I come home, and I realize I find a lot of these releases that not only are they not on streaming, but you couldn't buy them new if you wanted to. Because they're out of print and not available any longer. So there's a lot of music that has fallen in the cracks in the modern
I'm also happy to say
that
all classical recordings, and not all, but almost all, classical recordings are available on physical media, and a lot of labels don't put their music on streaming services. Or, for example, Hyperion Records will stream from their website, but they won't have their music on a streaming service. So it's a little, hard to do that, but you have to go to their site and you have to know that something came out, otherwise, because you wouldn't find it on your streaming service. Actually, there are some CDs that we talked about, the Copland CD the Copland album Symphony 3 that we really want to hear on CD. I imagine it'll come out eventually, but maybe. It's a great performance. It shouldn't just be in the ether somewhere. It should be on somebody's shelf.
And then you've got, the worst culprits for not wanting anything on streaming are the Japanese labels, Sony. And
Sony's the worst.
You aren't going to find Yo-Yo Ma albums on streaming that are on Sony and things like that.
And that's so wrong. I mean, he's such a major kind of, name, and you can't get him on streaming. It's really crazy.
We use Presto Music a lot to look at things, and they're usually
in England, they're fantastic.
fairly priced for both CD releases and also if you want to do the digital download. But
yeah, they're really good. They figured it out.
Take a look at those releases on the Japanese direct from Sony or Onkyo Music, and the prices are sometimes twice as high. Yeah. And I'm thinking, what are they thinking? Even for music that is available on streaming. And
you're talking about here in Japan?
Yeah, here in Japan.
Yeah, the price is really high. And,
so their approach is just really hard for me to understand because
it's actually often cheaper to buy something from England and have it shipped to Japan than to just buy it from a record store in Japan.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Or even from Amazon. It's really Amazon Japan. It's really crazy. Yeah. They just mark it up so much.
Yeah, so it's a strange world.
I think it has to do with all the middlemen.
It's a strange world. I just feel, fortunate that a lot of things we can listen to just on streaming before we decide to buy it. And imagine that. Imagine when I was a teenager and I had saved up all my money from my jobs that I was doing, and to buy this stereo equipment and my turntable and things. And someone said, when you get to be an old guy, you're going to hold something in your hand and point it at your stereo system, and you'll be able to listen to almost any music that was ever recorded in better than the quality you have now, just at the touch of a button. I wouldn't have believed it,
Yeah.
And yet that's where we are now, with some caveats to that situation. But who knows where we'll go from here? It's a wild west of.
Let's just hope it all gets preserved,
I hope
through whatever's coming, because it's all so fantastic, and it really is a record of our existence here on Earth during that period.
Yeah, that's what I worry about with any form of culture, books also that are only in the digital realm. They're easily erased or disappeared if they're only on a disc or on a drive or something like that. So, physical media still has a role to play, I think, in our collections. So, I won't be giving up my disc collection anytime soon.
I will not either. And it's kind of a nice thing to be getting old with, actually, just having that music available to you.
Yeah, it's always right there. And when the Wi-Fi goes out...
just hope my hearing holds out.
What? Yeah. High res? Did you say high res? No. Anyway, I think that'll be about wrapping it up for this edition.
I think so. That was great.
Adult music, yeah. Strong recommendations all the way around this week. And wishing everyone happy Easter and happy spring.
Well, happy Palm Sunday today.
If you're a pagan, happy Ishtar or whatever
next
goes
week
along
we'll
with
be
that.
up on Easter, but I guess we could say happy Easter next week.
Yeah.
Happy Holy Week.
And
listen to the Passions.
To spring releases, both religious and secular.
Yeah.
And there's lots of stuff coming out. We're going to be in no shortage of material to talk about.
Yeah, it's really exploding now.
And once again, if you've made it to the end of this podcast, please subscribe or send comments. Let us know who you are, where you are. We've got listeners from around the world now and multiple downloads in various countries and locations, but not so much feedback, positive or negative, from any location. So drop us a line. Let us know where you're listening from and what you're listening to. And
again, please subscribe. It helps us.
Yeah, subscribe.
Okay,
It'll help us.
It ups our profile.
Help our profile, keep us up in the recommended browsing listings on all of the services, which will help us get us into the spotlight more, where we can take that next step.
And you never know, if you're an early subscriber, or, if we wind up getting into the spotlight, there might be some merch for you. We don't know, We don't have any merch now, but, I'm talking about the future, years down the line.
Gathering momentum as we go here.
Here we go. Haven't missed a week yet.
No, and we're nothing to hold us back in sight.
I want to do this every day. I kind of like this.
When we get old and retire, maybe we can do it every day.
Maybe we will. Nothing to do. We're just going to talk about music every day. right.
Wouldn't be a bad way to go out.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
This has been episode 7 of Adult Music, your podcast for music for the mature mind. And we will surely be back next week with some more selections for the spring that will stimulate the intellect and soothe the emotions and bring out all that makes spring worth living for. So see you again next time.